where would you begin to describe what you thought of it?
Where would you even begin to do anything? I guess that's what this book is about. Uh, what is it? We are talking about Atlantis by Renzo Piano and Carlo Piano. And it has this nice ship on the front that I told Pavlina about this book, and I said it's written by this famous architect and his son. And she assumed that the picture of the ship on the front was that building in Dubai with the ship outline.
Yeah.
No, it's an actual ship.
No.
So I can begin there. They're on a ship. This book was written by the father and son. The architect is the father, and the son is a journalist. And they took a ship journey around the world from Italy east around India to Japan, and then around the Pacific to the US and back into the Atlantic Ocean to Greece. They finally end up there. And after going to England and Germany, and they stop by the sites, or at least they sort of pass close to the sites of Renzo Piano's famous buildings, and they talk about each of them. But the journey is supposedly the search for Atlantis. And what is Atlantis exactly? It's a symbol for something. And spoiler alert, we don't discover a sunken civilization. I was a little bit disappointed, Paul, because you sort of pitched this book to me as science fiction. You're like, oh, you like science fiction, Atlantis, the mysterious lost civilization. Like,
I was just playing.
Yeah.
When I said that,
We go find Atlantis.
It isn't science fiction.
It isn't science fiction.
It simply wants to question a fantastic idea. So in that sense, yeah.
Well, so the fantastic idea is an interesting way of putting it, because I think that they're using Atlantis as a metaphor for beauty. And they talk about beauty and goodness. And if something is beautiful, then it is also good. And if it's not good, then it isn't beautiful. And this is an ideal that we can approach but never reach. Did I get that?
I don't know. You're.
Oh, okay.
This is your idea of the book.
This is my idea of the book, right? But the fantastical part of it is interesting, because they're talking about goodness, right? And can you ever reach it? And there's an interesting quote. There's something that Renzo says about growing up in the immediate aftermath of World War II. And how that experience has left him optimistic. And he says something about the crazy idea or the ridiculous idea that things improve over time. And that's something I think about a lot of societal optimism. Do we think that we're headed in the right direction or not? And who and how it seems that Renzo's generation, that seems like a common thing with them, that they think the world is improving. And then Carlo's generation, which questions that, let's say. He doesn't have an answer, but he's like, oh, is it really improving? And then my generation, I think that the world is improving, but most of the people I see talking about it disagree and think it's actually getting worse. And so that fantastical idea is another pursuit that we're that is good to talk about. It's important to talk
Which,
about.
which fantastical idea that the
The
world is getting
fantastical idea
better?
the world is improving, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that improvement as such exists.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's all about metrics, isn't it? In that one sense. I think that, piano's sense is that I think that one reason that he might feel the world is improving, one reason I feel it's improving,
Yeah.
is certainly that is the idea that I can have a forum, that I can create a forum, that I can create waves and movements and opportunities to advance discussions. I have the feeling that my father's generation, for instance, discovered that opportunity after they had formed the notion that they couldn't speak, that they had no voice. And certainly, I mean, there's much evidence, historical evidence, to suggest that people did have far less opportunity to participate in civic life. It's not social life, but civic life.
Mhm.
And the idea of the civil society dramatically advances after World War II, I think.
Yeah.
Perhaps not the idea, but the actuality of a civil society dramatically advances after World War II. And I remember as a child going to various events at the Civic Center, which was an important part of our calendar.
Mhm.
And many events took place there, and they weren't governmental events, but they could have been exhibitions. I remember going to a huge train show that is model trains. I remember, those kinds of hobby related and family sort of events, which
Yeah.
brought us all together, which brought all parts of the community together. And we all wandered among things and felt a certain fascination, not only for the things themselves, but for being together,
Mhm.
looking at each other.
Mhm.
And I think that, Renzo Piano often talks about this quality in his work.
Yes. I think it's
Um,
important.
it, he talks about the museum as a plaza, as a piazza. He talks about the entrances to buildings, his renovation of the renovation and addition to the Pierpont Morgan Library involves the ability for people to walk through the space and into an interior garden, all of these kinds of things. And I don't know if you were ever at the old library. I haunted it as a teenager, but um, uh, it was it was a wonderful space, but it was not open to the public in the same sense that Piano was talking about. It was like going into an archive, and there would be these truly marvelous exhibitions there that you could go to, and many of them they were all free, as I recall, as many museums and libraries were when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. The Metropolitan was free, most museums were free, just went in.
Yeah.
But Piano talks about this civic quality of architecture, and that is a premise for the idea of goodness, and good work in architecture. And I think it's I think that, so to the question of optimism, I think that I'm just thinking about Bruce Ma right now, and one of the things he says he has an allergy to pessimism, and he has an allergy to the pessimistic. He knows that, he understands that pessimism can be cool,
Yeah.
and as a consequence, he makes, in this incomplete manifesto that he wrote, one of the things that was part of it was that don't do cool. Cool is nothing more than conservative fear dressed in black, and
Yeah. Okay.
and I that was a very amusing remark, and I think more so because it feels true.
Yeah. Right.
So so when I think about optimism, what strikes me is its utility, most of all. And pessimism may offer opportunities for critique, but optimism offers many opportunities for action.
Yeah.
And so I just find Piano's outlook on that exciting.
Exciting. Am I excited? Well, I can say I certainly liked the parts that Renzo wrote more than the parts that Carlo wrote, which is too bad, because Carlo is sort of the bricks and Renzo is the mortar between them. There isn't very much, but excited. I wish I was actually kind of missing excitement. I saw this book as a retrospective on his career, and he was like, "Oh, I did a good job with that building. Here were some. I wish I could have done this or that. I made a mistake there," and that was very interesting because I could tell I was listening to a craftsman, and he really knew what he was talking about, and the things that he knew were real because he really made the buildings, and the buildings really do continue to stand up and not fall down. But I didn't get much thought about the future. Maybe that just wasn't the point of the book. Yeah, so I wasn't excited because there wasn't a plan or even a what if. What are buildings going to look like? How? I guess he's
Why,
yeah.
why should there be?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about the word exciting.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I mean.
Mhm.
I think that why I found the book exciting, and I did find it terribly exciting, and I found it heartwarming on many instances. And I found the exchange between Renzo and Carlo to be really very, very, very interesting. And Carlo's remarks about his father's parenting style, and then considering the outcomes of that, and what things become curiosities for Carlo, and I found all those things very, very interesting. So I'm sort of in a different place on, you know, on Carlo's writing and Renzo's writing. I didn't parse them that way. I took it much more as a conversation between two people, a father and a son, and they're going to have very different perspectives on the world and on each other. So that came to me as kind of a given. You know, I certainly don't see the world the way my father did, and I know my daughter doesn't see the world the way I do, and I think that's just the natural course of things.
Yeah.
But to